The first manned mission to the moon was Apollo 11, which launched on July 16, 1969. It took 4 days to get there, traveling 384,400 kilometers, the average distance between Earth and the moon. To this day, that's still the farthest any human has ever been from our planet. I mean, technically it's the astronauts from the recent Artemis II mission, but you get what I mean. Now, our next target is Mars, but you have to understand something. From those almost 400,000 kilometers to the moon, we now jump to 55 million. And that's when the two planets are closest. They can be up to 400 million kilometers apart. All that distance, just to go from one tiny dot in space to another, surrounded by nothing. It's absolutely ridiculous how much nothing there is in the universe. From our perspective, everything seems so full. We see the moon shining huge in the night sky and think everything must be like that. But that's an illusion. The moon is abnormally large compared to most satellites relative to their planets. It's 1/4 the size of Earth. And honestly, people don't talk enough about how statistically rare the moon is. For starters, we only ever see one side of it because its rotation period matches its orbit around Earth, always facing us. Have you noticed that during an eclipse it covers the sun perfectly? That's insanely rare. Statistically, from our point of view, it should look like a tiny dot over the sun. But it just so happens that the sun is 400 times larger than the moon and 400 times farther away. That gives us the perfect match. Pure coincidence. Then the only big thing we see is the sun. But the sun is almost 150 million kilometers away. You have to put it in a more understandable perspective to truly grasp that distance. If Earth were a pea, the sun would be a large yoga ball, about 109 times bigger. And if we place the yoga ball sun in the corner of this Olympic swimming pool, the Earth pea would be around here, roughly 117 meters away. And in between, nothing. Now, in the other direction, those 55 million kilometers to Mars, which would be like a large lentil, about 179 meters away. Good luck finding that. And that's still part of the so-called inner planets. The distance between the inner planets is nothing compared to the outer ones, which are far, far more spread out. And in between, there's the asteroid belt, the one where, in movies, a highly skilled pilot barely dodges certain death.
Houston, we have a problem.
In reality, asteroids there are about 100,000 kilometers apart from each other. We're heading for the asteroid belt. Everyone to your stations.
Oh my God!
Finally, the last planet, Neptune, in our pool example, would be a large marble, already outside the town, 3.5 kilometers away from the yoga ball sun. Once again, surrounded by nothing. And don't get me started on Pluto. It's not a planet, okay? Did you know its orbit crosses Neptune's? What kind of planet does that? Between 1979 and 1999, Pluto was actually closer to the sun than Neptune itself. Imagine, this is how school should have been.
Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto.
No, you failed. Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune. And even just looking at our solar system is enough to realize how little something there actually is. Because if we wanted to show the distance to the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, at the same scale, it would be like a large orange. And if the sun ball were at the North Pole, we'd have to look for the orange somewhere around here. But You know, in this direction. 31,500 kilometers of emptiness before finding one miserable orange. And you might think, okay, sure, space is mostly empty. Small bits of matter here and there. But if we actually look into matter itself, it gets much worse. Of all the particles we know, everything we interact with, touch, and are, from a fart to a neutron star, is made of just these three particles that form atoms. In 400 BCE, Democritus, probably sitting under a tree when an apple fell on his head or whatever, reasoned that if you broke a stone in two, each half would retain the same properties. But if you kept breaking it into smaller and smaller pieces, eventually you'd reach something so small it couldn't be divided anymore. He called it atomos, Greek for indivisible, the fundamental substance from which all matter is made. Today we know it can be divided, but take the simplest atom, hydrogen. Just one proton in the nucleus and one electron. And this is very important. Not orbiting like a tiny ball as they taught you in school, but in a probability cloud. We imagine something like this. But in real scale, if the entire atom were the size of a cathedral, the proton in the center would be like a tiny mosquito hovering inside it. That's just one atom. And matter is made of a bunch of these. Let's say, a small grain of salt. That little thing would contain roughly this many pair of atoms. 630 quintillion. This number. If you tried to count them at a rate of 1 atom per second, it would take you about 40 billion years. And how far apart would those atoms be? That depends on the material's density. So let's take iron, which is quite dense. If its atomic nucleus, the mosquito, were scaled up so that it were the size of Earth, how far away would the next nucleus be in this hard, dense material? Well, you'd have to travel 1.6 billion kilometers of nothing, all the way to Saturn, just from one atomic nucleus to the next, in a block of iron. It's true that just as matter in space is held together by gravitational fields, the microscopic world is bound by electromagnetic fields and quantum forces. But still, it's all empty space, both in the vast and the tiny. If we took all the atomic nuclei of all the atoms in the solar system, from the suns to Pluto's, and packed them together, the whole lot would fit in just 13 kilometers. So, what is the universe? Or us? If we're made of 99.9% empty space. The truth is, the universe is full of nothing. Everywhere. Anyway, if you're not empty inside, you can subscribe if you want.
Saturn, Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune.
Wrong. Failed again. Now it's the other way around again. You know what? I've had enough. I'm taking Pluto out of my planetarium. I hate it.